Good evening, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors. And this is the Mexico Open with Brady Kannon, our weekly trip to Las Vegas to speak with one of the best golf experts in the land. Talking Mexico Open, last week was some teams. I was calling it doubles, but teams play 1 week away as we head back. I think south is correct as we're getting closer to the PGA, the second major. But it's my favorite time of the week to bring on Brady to talk some golf and just to see where his eyes are, because I see a big favorite this week, and I know he's the defending champ. But this number on DraftKings at plus 260, this reminds me of Tiger in his prime. So be amazing to hear what Brady has to say. Without further ado, let's bring him in, the one and only Mr. Brady Kannon.
Mr. Dawson, how are you, sir? Great to be with you on a Wednesday evening as well, talking a little golf. And you're right, the odds there on Jon Rahm, by the way, the number one player in the world and the defending champ, as you mentioned, are certainly Tiger-esque. I can't remember. Now, he was a pretty darn short favorite at this golf tournament last year when he won it. I want to say he was in the neighborhood of 6 or 7 to 1, maybe as high as 8 to 1. But now obviously cut down quite a bit. I heard, on Sunday night, I was on Sports Grid and there was word that he was going to open up at like even money. And I said, if you could get 2 to 1 or, plus 250, 3 to 1, something like that, go and jump on it. But sure enough, he opened up in the neighborhood of about plus 285, somewhere in there, in that range. I don't think he's ever touched 3, but it certainly is a crazy price. And then you have the second choice, Tony Finau, who also played here last year. He's in the neighborhood of 7 or 8 to 1. And then after that, it's kind of anybody's ball game. I was speaking with Matt Humans on our podcast on Tuesday, and Matt was saying, I'm going to have some fun with this tournament. I'm probably going to dumb down the risk a little bit, but I'm going to take a few long bombs and see if I can hit a bomb, because if Rahm and Finau stumble a little bit, you could have a triple-digit guy get into the winner's circle here real easy.
And I was wondering the same thing. You look at these odds, and I was going to ask you, we're almost getting ready for those tune-ups for the second major. Now, Rahm's coming in, defending champ. We know if the putter's working and he comes in razor focused, there's only a handful of these golfers probably that can even be within shouting distance on Sunday. But with a plus 260, a plus 800, and then your next third favorite is a Wyndham Clark, which you talked about last week. Then we got a Woodland, a Rogers. I agree. This is the week where you like to say, we might dumb down again this week and take a swing. Because if I said to you very nicely, I have $100, are you going to put it on a plus 260, or you take 4 swings at 25 to 1 shots?
Right, exactly. And, I'll remember that you brought up Wyndham Clark. It still burns me a little bit what happened to that guy last week. You recall, we actually had a really good week. And yes, I dumbed down the risk last week too, because the team format is a very random handicap, but we worked out pretty well. I had Wyndham Clark and Bo Hostler, that team, and then also Sungjae Im and Keith Mitchell sitting in first and second place heading into Sunday, and neither one of them could get home. But all 3 of my selections did cash for a top 20, and we won our head-to-head matchup as well. So it turned out to be an okay week, but I thought we had another outright there on our hands. I actually do like Wyndham Clark this week, Jeff. I thought he was certainly the better of the 2 teammates last week, he and Bo Hostler. Wyndham Clark's been playing very good golf this year. He's got 5 top 10 finishes on the season, and in 3 out of his last 4 starts, he's finished top 6. So, he's a guy. I actually put him on my card this week. He's the shortest shot I took. And we'll get into this a little further here with all my selections, but this is a bomber's course. You have to hit the ball a long way, not total driving, but driving distance, strokes gained off the tee. Birdies are better gained, strokes gained approach. And then also it's pretty interesting here. It's a wide margin. This is by far the greatest golf course where you have the most number of approach shots of 200 yards or better into the green. It's like almost 45% of the shots into the green are from 200 yards or better. And like I say, that's a real wide margin where the next closest course on tour is for those type of approach shots. So, it's a long course. It's almost 7,500 yards and it's only a par 71, couple of par fives on this course that are over 600 yards. So it's a real beast. And then you throw in some of that wind. We are somewhat of a coastal location here, less than a mile from the coast between Nuevo and Puerto Vallarta. Vedanta is the golf course there, a Greg Norman design. And last year, we really saw the wind kick up in the afternoon, relatively calm in the morning. And then you had gusts up to 30 miles an hour in the afternoon. And a lot of players talked about that. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen this year. The forecast is calling for 10 to 15 miles an hour, which sounds like a pretty steady coastal breeze. But you know how it is when you're close to the water like that. It can turn on a dime. So I'm betting that it will be calmer than last year. But you throw in that breeze to the length of the golf course. And a lot of these guys, some of the shorter hitters in this field, it's going to be very difficult to handle. So I landed on all big bombers, big hitters off the tee this week. And Wyndham Clark is certainly one of those guys. He is 9th on tour or 11th on tour, rather, in driving distance.
I want to take a step back for 1 second because I get a lot of questions that usually come up. Maybe a lot of people that are new to golf, people that want to just dip their toes in the bunker behind us at Brookline or somewhere else. Last Sunday, you said you had the 1-2. You were on the lid and second. Now, when you got up in the morning and you saw that and you saw the live odds, I know each day, each tournament, each week is different. Are you sitting there very comfortable saying, come on, boys, I'm all set where I am? Or do you take a look further down the board and maybe do some quarters, some pizza and beer money just in case?
I did not last week because, I had number one and number two, and they were, I think they were about plus 150 and plus 160 to win the tournament. I mean, very low prices. And I think at one point, Wyndham Clark and Bo Hostler got to minus money, maybe a minus 140 or something like that when they had, I believe, a 2-stroke lead on the front nine. But no, I just figured if I've basically got 2 horses here in the race. I've got the entry, right? And neither one of them, unfortunately, could get home. But I wasn't going to necessarily dip into my profits and hedge a little bit. And, hedging in golf is really difficult. And I'm glad I didn't too, because the teams that ended up finishing first and second were absolutely long bombs. It was Adam Hadwin and Nick Taylor that shot 9 under, again, in an alternate shot format. That tied the all-time tournament record that Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay had set earlier in the week on Friday. And then Davis Riley and Nick Hardy are winners. They shot 7 under in alternate shot. That's really unheard of. So, even if I was going to, try and hedge a little bit and pick out a couple of teams that might contend, I probably wouldn't have gone as deep on the board as those guys were, because you're just not expecting someone to shoot 7, 8, 9 under par in an alternate shot format.
And of course, we did the show last Wednesday. I put in all those plays, and I'm sitting there the same way you are. I'm looking at the board, and as you said, the eyes don't go that far down on Sunday, meaning, you keep scrolling and looking at the odds and shaking your head, and then turn it on, and then you see the -9, the -7, and we're looking at our guys, at the turn, -1. They're just not firing, and we're hoping that they catch fire. But when someone goes out like guns a-blazing, -9, -7, it's tough to catch on a Sunday.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, Clark and Hostler didn't play great. They played pretty darn well on the front nine, and I thought they were going to, just continue on and make their way into the winner's circle. But they all of a sudden got pretty cold on the back nine. Bo Hostler really hit some errant shots on the back nine. His irons kind of went sour. But you're right. It's hard to defend against a guy shooting, 63, 64 on a Sunday. That's credit to Nick Hardy and Davis Riley, each earning their first PGA Tour victory, and credit to Adam Hadwin and Nick Taylor too. That was a heck of a run by Team Canada, and it's pretty darn tough to handicap that type of thing. That's kind of a random occurrence.
Rom, the defending champ, before we turn this over to you, I think next week is Quail Hollow, correct?
Yeah, Quail Hollow next week, and then the Byron Nelson the following week, and then it's on to Oak Hill for the PGA up in New York.
So a lot of the big names taking this week off to get rested, heading down south to get ready for those two tournaments to then get ready for the major.
Yeah, I think you'll have a tremendous field at Quail Hollow, and I haven't done any research. The official field comes out on Friday afternoon, 5 p.m. Pacific time, I believe, 5 p.m. Eastern maybe on Fridays is when they release the official field for the following event. But sometimes you can get a few people that have already committed, and I haven't taken a look, but I imagine it's going to be a dandy. It's typically a good field always anyway. You've got an absolute championship course here where, of course, they have held the PGA Championship, Justin Thomas winning that one back in 2017. So, this is a big boy golf course, and I think all the big boys are going to be there for their probably final tune-up before the PGA. You might have some guys play the Nelson as well, but for the most part, I think you're going to get the star power out in force at Quail Hollow.
All right, well, we're heading to Mexico, margaritas, tequila, whatever, sombreros, the course, the picks are now in your hands.
Well, I mentioned Wyndham Clark. I mentioned he's 11th on tour in driving distance. Over his last 36 rounds in this field, he's 28th in strokes gained off the tee, and he is second in strokes gained approach. Also, the correlated courses I used this week were Corrales at the Corrales Punta Cana Championship, also the Country Club of Jackson that they used for the Sanderson Farms, and then Torrey Pines. And Clark is just coming off of a recent finish in the Fall Series where he took 6th at Corrales. And as I mentioned, he's really kind of quietly having a fantastic season with 5 top 10s and 3 top 6 finishes in his last 4 starts. And then I started going deeper down the board. Landed on Will Gordon, who's another bomber of the golf ball. He is 9th in this field over the last 36 rounds in driving distance, 14th in strokes gained off the tee, and 16th over his last 36 rounds in proximity to the hole from 200 yards or better. And I got him at 66-1. Also at 66-1, Luke List. He is 6th in this field for driving distance, 29th in birdies or better gained. He has an 11th place finish at Sanderson Farms. And Luke List has done really well at Torrey Pines. He won it in a playoff over Willie Zalatoris just last season. He's also finished 10th, 12th, and 25th there at Torrey Pines. So big boy golf course once again, and another big hitter is Luke List. I think he'll have some success here this week. And then I also took Joseph Bramlett at 70-1. Last week in New Orleans, he tied for 26th in the team event, but they shot 3 rounds in the 60s. It was just Sunday that really did them in when they shot even par 72. But 3 rounds in the 60s and a respectable finish at 26th. Last 36 rounds, he is 12th in this field for strokes gained approach, 20th in driving distance, 28th in hole proximity from 200 yards or better. And he has top 15 finishes at both Corrales and Torrey Pines. And then finally, my last selection, I went with Lanto Griffin, a triple-digit bomb here at 135-1. And Jeff, I've actually seen him as low as 66-1. So I think I got a pretty good number on this one. 43rd in the field over his last 36 rounds for strokes gained off the tee, 21st in strokes gained approach, 29th in birdies or better gained. And this guy, like Luke List, also has a great history at Torrey Pines. I remember I landed on him the year Patrick Reed won this. I want to say that was about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. Victor Hovland, if I recall, finished second. I had Lanto Griffin that year, and I think it was at triple digits once again, and he ended up finishing 7th. he caught my eye in the handicap before that tournament. And then I saw the results that he produced. And I said, this guy might be something to take a look at. Now he's been injured the last couple of seasons, but he's getting back into the swing of things. He's also got a recent 15th place finish at the Valero Texas Open, which is another Greg Norman design TPC San Antonio. So those were the 5 outrights: Wyndham Clark, Will Gordon, Luke List, Joseph Bramlett, and Lanto Griffin.
And those are all outrights, and we usually do the top 20 as well.
Yes,
correct?
I also took him to finish top 20 at whatever the corresponding price was.
Very good. Very good. I have the head-to-heads over here on our spreadsheet, but potential some first-round leaders.
You want to go first-round leaders first here?
Whatever's easiest for you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll give you the head-to-heads real quickly here. Just 2 head-to-head matchups this week. I went again with Wyndham Clark. I took him at plus 165 against Tony Finau. I thought that price was really ridiculous, and I did see it down as low as plus 135, and I did see plus 155 as well. I do think I believe I got a little bit of an outlier number, but maybe 150 is still out there, and that would still be a buy sign for me. The other one I played was Ben On, Byung Hoon On, at even money over Bo Hostler. And Benny On is actually a really big hitter. And I just wasn't that impressed with Hostler last week, especially on Sunday. He and Wyndham Clark had a great tournament. They probably should have won it. They nearly did. But Hostler kind of unraveled, especially down the back 9. And I wasn't impressed with that. Now, Wyndham Clark, as I mentioned, I think he's having a great year, and I don't think that was really, the undoing of their team there. I don't think you can put that all on him. I probably put that more on Hostler and some of it was alternate shots. So, if you hit a bad one, you're really sticking it to your partner. And we saw Hostler do that a few times. I'm okay, obviously, with Wyndham Clark, having him in an outright and a head-to-head. But I think Ben On is a much longer hitter than people really realize, and I think he can do well here as a small underdog to Bo Hostler. And then as far as the first-round leader, Jeff, I started with Patrick Rogers, and I know this guy made the outright card for a lot of people in the golf betting space. I got him, and he makes all the sense. They're Wyndham Clark, Will Gordon, Patrick Rogers, Joe, all these guys, these young kids, big hitters. They're probably, after you get past Rahm and Finau, there's probably about 20 guys that you're going to see picked by a lot of different people this week. And it's kind of like take your pick of that bunch, who you want. Patrick Rogers has certainly been a name that I've seen come up quite a bit in the outright market. And I like him in the first round leader market. He opened with a 66 here last year at this tournament. Let me find the rest. Oh, he had a top 20 finish at Harbor Town recently. And he also finished 5th at the Valero Texas Open. And I mentioned that's another Norman design there. The last 36 rounds, he is 9th in this field for birdies or better gained, 15th in driving distance, 17th in strokes gained off the tee. And I mentioned last year, he opened just 2 shots off the lead, firing a 66. So maybe he can go a couple of strokes better this year and get out in front on Thursday. Steven Yager opened with a round in the 60s 11 times already this season. And that has him ranked 11th on tour for first round scoring average. Last 36 rounds, he's 29th in this field for driving distance, 15th in strokes gained off the tee, and 38th in strokes gained approach. And then the final play I made for first round leader was Alex Smalley at 55-1. This guy was a runner-up in Corrales Punta Cana in 2022. That's another course that has the paspalum grass like we have here in Mexico. So Alex Smalley really faring well on one of the correlated courses I used. He also shot a final round 65 at that tournament. I wouldn't mind him shooting a first round 65 here in Mexico. I also mentioned Torrey Pines, a correlated course that I used. Well, it was a couple years ago that he fired a 62 at Torrey Pines. So this guy has the ability to go low on some of the courses that I feel are similar here to Vedanta. He's also done well on other coastal courses. He has a second place finish at the RSM Classic, opening rounds of 65 and 67. Also finished 11th at the Bermuda Championship, and that's where he finished, or that's where he had an opening round of 65, opening round of 67 at the RSM. He is 23rd in this field over the last 36 rounds for strokes gained off the tee and strokes gained approach. So those were my three guys for first round leader: Patrick Rogers, Alex Smalley, and Stefan Jaeger.
What did you get Rogers and Jaeger? What are the numbers?
Rogers is 40 and Jaeger was 50. And then
Okay.
Smalley was 55.
Brian Gaskell, great friend, has a question for you. Any love for Brandon Wu as a mid-range long shot for outrights and lineup fillers on DraftKings?
Sure, absolutely. I thought he had a great week last week in the team format at New Orleans, and I think he's kind of an up-and-comer player. And the easy answer here, Jeff, is this field's pretty wide open. You know, I think we've kind of alluded to that here during the show. Once you get past Rahm and Finau, it's kind of take your pick. Now you got to do your research and see who makes sense. I'm siding certainly with guys that are big hitters off the tee. You always want to look at strokes gained approach. I like guys that can make a lot of birdies. I don't think the short game is a factor this week. And I don't have the stats in front of me on Brandon Wu. But if he struggles in the short game, I'm not worried about that. But yeah, I think certainly this guy has a lot of upside, and maybe this will be his week.
Well, we can't wait. I got my list here ready to tiptoe to the tulips over to DK to put some plays in. Next week, Quail Hollow. Then you said Lord Byron Nelson, and then our second major on the PGA. The scroll has been going the whole time, Brady. Everyone can find you at Las Vegas Golf or at GolfBet, at PGA Tour, Sports Grid, your Heat Strokes pod. Great work. Amazing stuff. Tell everyone where to find your work.
Yeah, if you want more detail on what we've discussed today, my written articles for all the outrights is up at golf.com. And then my first round leader article is up at pgatour.com, their division called Golf Bet. You can find that there. And then later this evening, I'll be on Sports Grid to talk about more of the Mexico Open at Vedanta, and we'll get into some of that there. Las Vegas Golfer on Twitter, as you mentioned, Jeff. You can always find any updates to just about anything there. And then the Heat Strokes pod, our special guest, Matt Humans, was the guest host on Tuesday. And of course, we talked about the Mexico Open at Vedanta. And what the format of that podcast is Matt and I like to play a lot of golf in the heat of summer, the Heat Strokes podcast. And what we do is we review a golf course that we have played in the past. And on Tuesday, we talked about gorgeous, beautiful Kapalua in Maui. We have both played the Bay course and the Plantation course there. Of course, the Plantation where they play the Century Tournament of Champions in early January. And just some fantastic photos. You can go to my YouTube channel there and search Heat Strokes podcast.
Well, and I had to smile when you were talking Sports Grid, because by the time I leave the studio, I go home, I make a late dinner, and then I sit down and boom, there you are. And it's almost like I get to replay our show right now. Can't thank you enough. Shout out to Brian Gaskell. Thank you for the question, Brian. Always Connor for showing up, and all the regular cast of characters. Myself and Brady will be back next Wednesday at 6 p.m. my time, 3 p.m. Vegas time, to talk about Quail Hollow. But till then, everyone, have a great night. Enjoy yourselves. Behave. Stay in your lanes. Enjoy all this action, and we'll see you soon.